All right. Okay. All right. So now let's go through a little bit of theory about how to use advanced attribution metrics to make decisions. But almost if you don't take anything away from this class, the most important takeaway from this class is that measurement is really about decisions. Measurement's not about measurement. It's not an absolute thing. It's really about helping you make better decisions. Okay. And in the next section, we'll talk about how to use the framing of how to use measurement to make better decisions. Okay. Sometimes doesn't matter how you look at the channel. If you can look at it 5 different ways, they all might end up at different numbers. But compared to a decision you want to make, they may all point to the same decision. Whereas in some cases, depending on how you look at it, you may end up with different decisions, right? So that's what you're looking for. Is the measurement, is the channel sensitive to the type of measurements your measurement approach you're taking? And am I ending up with different decisions? If you are, then there's decision sensitivity. If not, it's not. So it may not matter as much. Okay, that's kind of how we can explore the rest of this class. Okay, all right. Here's an example. Let's say, for example, Facebook. Right, you're spending about $1.7 million. Let's call it a month or quarter or whatever. Let's say last month you spent $1.7 million on Facebook. The Facebook CPA that came out of Facebook is $330. Right. The web analytics or the Google Analytics CPA is $3,000, right? It's kind of a big difference. Right? One is 330, one is 3,000, but 10x difference, right? This is a very common use case. In fact, if you go back to yesterday's class or Monday's class, the MTA example, I walked you through a Google Analytics example where Google Analytics had first click versus last click. You could see how the Facebook numbers changed dramatically on a first click basis, right? This is very common. So the first click number may have been even closer to what Facebook might have reported, but the last click number is so different from what Facebook reported. This happens all the time in brands where you see the actual measurement across self-reported CPAs versus web analytics reported CPAs could be very, very different. Okay. Now we're asking the question, well, Facebook CPA is vastly different when you look at it through Facebook's ad manager versus Google Analytics. I have no clue how to reconcile the two reads. How do I reconcile it? What's right, what's wrong? Well, the way to think about this is, what is your goal CPA? What is your goal ROI, right? CPA ROAS. What is it? Let's say it's $100. If it's $100 CPA that you're trying to manage to, it doesn't matter if it's 330 or 3,000, it's too expensive for you, right? So what you do is you think of this in the concept of a band of decisions you would make, okay? So now overlay the band of decisions, right? If it's around $100, you would hold the spend. You'd be like, I will keep my spend at 1.7 because it's kind of, I'm trying to manage my business to a $100 CPA. Facebook's $1.7 million in spend is kind of landing around that. So I'm going to hold it. If it's better than $100, I want to scale it. If I have ROI room, if I have CPA room, headroom, I want to scale into the channel. Well, if it's kind of worse than $100, I want to pull back, right? And I want to pull back so that I can get it to a point where it's actually $100. I want to manage to $100. If it's really worse, if it's like $3,000, I want to cut it. Okay. So think of this as your framing of how you would make decisions based on your goal that you have. And you're trying to figure out where the measurement lands you. In this particular case, it doesn't matter if you look at the self-attributed CPA or the Google Analytics CPA. In both cases, you would actually cut the spend, right? Or you would reduce the spend, right? So the immediate decision to start pulling back spend is obvious. So you would pull back spend. Now the question is, would you actually fully cut spend? Then you would need a test to determine that, right? So here is an example of how you would actually pose the question, right? So you should reframe the question as, should I scale, hold, or cut the Facebook CPAs given my target CPA is $100? Now you can actually come to a clean decision to say, well, because no matter what I look at, I should reduce spend, so I should start reducing spend on Facebook, right? So here's an example. Now imagine that okay, here, that's what I'm saying. So reduce the spend, but if you want to really like cut it all together, you probably need a test to figure out, is it somewhere here, is it somewhere here? What does the test say, right? When you run a test and you come back, let's say you either use MMMs or you actually run incrementality test, you come back and say, well, the read is $687. Now you actually have a read that tells you, well, it's not 330, it's actually worse. It's worse than 330, it's 687. I should probably like cut the spend. We should probably cut Facebook altogether. And I probably kind of keep a small portion of the budgets for testing. Maybe I to turn the Facebook program into an experimental program and figure out if I can get the creatives to work better, the execution to work better, try different targeting, try different different types of Facebook conversion ad types to see if the performance will improve and you can bring it back at scale. But at that level of CPA, it's clearly telling you it cannot belong in your media plan. Okay. All right. Okay. Now let's say it's $1,000.